Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the View Screen Podcast, a podcast where we introduce sci-fi shows to a fantasy nerd. I'm Viztee,
And I'm Overlite.
and today, today we're watching episodes. Jesus, I've forgotten which ones it is. 7 and 8 of Andor. Sure, we'll say that.
Quite glad we only did 2 this week.
So we only did 2 this week.
Yeah, and I'm quite glad we did because they were longer than normal.
Yeah, well, I looked at them and I was like, okay, if we do 4, one of them is 59 minutes long or something, including credits. So I was like, that is definitely much longer than the other ones were.
Another one was like 53.
Yeah, so I'm like, maybe. And the second episode that we watched this week, I was like sat there, and I went, oh yeah, this one ends on the prisoner killing himself on the floor, and then it kept going. And I was like, oh, okay, this one ends on I can't remember what happened after that in that episode. This one ends with Bix getting captured, and it kept going, and I was like, okay.
So
This
then when he
one
talks to
ends.
Saw.
Yeah, this one ends when Luthen talks to Saw Gerrera, and then it kept going. I was like, where did this episode end? It doesn't end. I felt like it had like 5 natural endpoints, and that bad boy just.
I did feel like that. There was one point that I think like some doors closed on someone. I think partly because Andor was like in a prison for all of it.
On program.
Off program.
Do you remember? I think I said on program at some point during something we've done together, and I was like, "Oh no, I can't talk about that." It's like it's gonna move on. Can't talk about the program.
The first rule of the program.
Yeah, first rule of being in Star Wars ocean space prison.
Star Wars version of they have that in like X-Men. This like space.
Oh yeah,
in the ocean prison. Is that like?
Well, this one's like seems to be in like a lake or something maybe.
Right.
But they have it in the Avengers as well. Though it's basically only appears in like one film, I think. But it's like there in the background is this ocean sort of prison to keep all of the bad baddies in, so even if they do somehow break out of their prison cell, they're just stuck in the middle of the literal ocean.
God forbid they put a fish-based supervillain in there.
Yeah, they put Aquaman in there or whatever.
They gotta put him in like a volcano. They need a volcano
Iron Man
version.
captures Jason Momoa, sticks him in prison.
Jason Momoa.
We want to see. Yeah.
Should we go from the start?
The start of these episodes. So if you remember last time on Andor. Andor, he's killed some guards, and he went home, and then he tried to sell a Starpath unit that he stole to Luthen, so he gets some money to run away, and Luthen recruits him. And then they get attacked by the people who were protecting, like the corpo security from the place. He's killed 2 of them, and Luthen recruits him, drops him off on this planet, and is basically like, "You follow this woman's lead now. For the rebellion, you'll get paid. Here's some insurance in case you don't believe me. See ya." And so Andor ends up having to. Basically go along with this heist of 80 million credits.
He's
from
just done a heist.
The Empire, and so they've just finished the heist. He took his share.
Yep.
He had the opportunity to steal all of the money, but he didn't, because part of him deep down does believe in the rebellion and isn't a cunt.
Is that it? I mean, maybe he just doesn't want to be like a massive dick about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably that. And so he's took his share of the money that he was promised. He left the rest of the like 79 million credits with Vel, and he's gone. He's gone. He went home. That's the way we started this episode.
It's not where we started this episode.
Was it not?
Actually, well, according
actually, where we started in this episode was Colonel. Oh shit! I need to look up this guy's name. Because he is okay. So the guy, it starts with the ISB, and there's a guy giving a briefing because of the robbery.
Yeah.
And the guy giving the briefing is he is a very important
is he from some other show? Is this what you're about to
Colonel,
tell me?
No, yeah, he's in everything. He is Colonel Wolf Yularen. He was an admiral. He was Anakin Skywalker's admiral in the Clone Wars. And he is basically, he ends up in charge of the ISB from the end of the Clone Wars through to the destruction of the Death Star, at least. He is in episode 4, A New Hope. He is in the Death Star meeting with Vader, and when Vader is choking out somebody, he is in that meeting at the start of A New Hope. So he is a important lad. And
yeah,
I don't even think he gets name dropped.
And I was it's a guy. They've got some other guy, and I wonder if he'll be relevant later.
Some other guy who's in charge of the other guy who's in charge.
I didn't make a note of him. I was just like, well, I guess they're halving. Maybe they brought in some other top brass to split the speech, because they were going like, one of them was saying one bit and the other one was saying the other bit. They'd be like, increased security of so-and-so, and the other one would be like, the introduction of new laws that take away the restrictions that we previously had. And the other one would be like, greater levels of control over the so-and-so, and just like, I was like, yes, very important. I mean, it was a fun way to start the episode. I mean,
because, well, it is very important at the end of the day, because that sort of everything they're talking about is taken over those 2 episodes, and like these 2 episodes that we just watched, and you're seeing the aftermath of them stealing all of these credits from this garrison. It's not just that the Empire's not just gone, this is bullshit. The Empire's gone, the Emperor's gone, ha ha ha, this is the perfect excuse for me to introduce my new law, like these laws that basically mean that anybody can be arrested for anything at all. You just you basically lifting any sort of like similar things have happened in the real world after large terror events and stuff, like introducing all of these laws that increase the ability to spy on citizens and increase the ability to arrest people for stuff. And that's exactly what's happened in this thing in the Empire. It's like they've just introduced a bunch of these new rules that mean they can get away with things, arresting people and stuff.
It did
based
kind
on
of
this event.
It kind of felt like they were looking for any excuse to crack down.
Yeah, basically.
Like
yeah.
the whole speech they gave was the top brass guy was like, this is why we work so hard in times of peace. This is why we are ever vigilant, so that when this time comes for us to step forward, we can, etc., etc.
And he's like, I spoke to Emperor Palpatine personally this morning. And it's like, oh shit, this guy's important.
I was like, no, not the Emperor,
he's the head of the ISB. He is important.
I don't care about the Emperor. Emperor's
don't bring
cringe.
Him up. So we go from that big briefing about the ISB cracking down.
That's actually not where we start.
That was where we start.
I'm pretty sure it starts with Cyril's mum.
Oh, I didn't write that down because I was like, fucking Cyril.
The only
Fuck
reason
this guy.
The only reason that I'm drawing attention to this is I mean, his mum is a massive dick.
Oh yeah.
And she really specifically points out, she like really belittles Cyril for his raised collar. And she's just, it's so like he raised his collar, and she's like, oh, it shows off that you want something. Oh, it's so pathetic.
Like,
you're such a little baby. Wow, wow.
It
And I'm
shows
like,
off
Jesus
that you're
Christ,
a
shut up.
submissive bitch and you've got something to hide. You're not confident in yourself. Like,
yeah, and the fact that you're renting shows off that you're a massive cunt. But the thing is that I did like, so she's pointing that out, and then we cut to the ISB, and we're looking at Dedra.
Yeah.
The person who I consider to be a very strong parallel to Cyril within the ISB, and she also has a raised collar.
Oh.
And I'm just there like, is that so? I see what you're putting down, writers of the show. And then we have the whole, there was a bit of a nod to them cracking down on the Aldani natives. And I was like...
Yeah, they arrested 120 Aldani natives or something, which I think was basically everybody who was at the...
Yeah.
The area at the end. They were at the, like...
Possibly plus some
more. But it seems like it was basically everybody who had congregated who hadn't fucked off.
Yeah. And there was also something about, like, cracking down on, like, native festivals, like local... festivals that they weren't going to allow them to be used as covers for partisan activity. Yeah,
which is very vague. That's what I mean. It's like these very vague things are like, aha, well, now we can, and they were like, oh, we can fine worlds. If a world is found to be engaging in rebel activity, they can be fined for, or harboring rebels, they'll be fined for 4 times the amount that was stolen from the thing. And it's like, okay, that's fucking a lot of credits.
Okay, dude, sure.
And then they were like, oh, and any festival, you can't, or we have to crack down on any festivals or events being used as cover for rebel activity. And it's just like, all this shit's so vague. You could easily just point to somebody and go, I've decided that your planet is harboring rebel activity. Well, basically what happened to Alderaan. They didn't have, maybe they did have more proof in the background. It was pretty obvious in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But they never had any direct
proof
happened to
Alderaan?
What happened to Alderaan, Overlite?
Yeah.
Got blown up by the Death Star.
Good old Alderaan. Oh, fucking rip. Holy shit.
Yeah, you don't remember that? Jeez.
No, I thought they blew up, like, Kashyyyk or something.
No. Kashyyyk's fine. It's chilling out. No, they blew Alderaan up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can't believe it. Can't believe they do that.
No, I can't believe
without evidence.
Well, the rebels seem to be getting a lot of these Alderaanian ships out for being stolen and used by the rebellion, but there was nothing tying.
They clearly are having difficulties with their security measures.
Yeah.
Just get the ISB in.
But they're like very easy for them to now point fingers at people and be like, "Yep, you're a baddie.
Yep,
we've decided. We, the Empire, have decided that you're a baddie." I think this show also does a really great job at just making the universe feel so fucking awful to live in.
I was gonna say, so
this is so fucking depressing.
Watching these 2 episodes, genuinely, I just got this pervasive feeling of pain. Like, I think I stopped writing at some point because it all just kind of blurred into, like, painfulness. Like, everything was really... because the first 6 episodes were very driven. They were very driven, very direction-based. They might have been, calm and not necessarily filled with action, but Cassian Andor was trying to find a way off of Ferrix. He was trying to find a way out. He was escaping. He was on Aldani planning this whole thing. He was helping with a heist, and then the heist ends, and suddenly he goes back to Ferrix and fails to convince his mum to leave with him.
Yeah.
And then just
and that was so
leaves
sad
and goes to a beach planet. And everyone else is still just kind of living their lives after all this action. And we're watching the Empire just crack down and more troopers showing up and people getting arrested and characters we know like struggling and fighting each other with words, not actually fighting each other really. And just like this slow sort of grinding increase of pain that the Empire is just like choking them out, and like none of them have anywhere to go. They don't have the option to go anywhere. If they tried to go anywhere, they might just get fucking arrested.
Well, Luthen gives a great speech about the like slow. This like Luthen's basically says this to Mon Mothma. Mon Mothma's like, "Was this you? Did you do this heist? They're gonna use this as an excuse to crack down super hard now and just make loads of people's lives miserable, and lots of people are gonna get tortured and killed and stuff." And Luthen's like, "Good," because at the moment the Empire's just been slowly eroding everybody's rights, slowly taking things away, slowly like crushing people's will to live. But now that they're like gone full force cracking down, they're giving people a reason to step up and go, no, this isn't right. So Luthen's like totally on board for making everybody miserable to make them fight back, and he gives a great speech about it. I think what I was thinking as well, before I'm pivoting around all over the place, this thing is this show has some fucking great like monologues, and like lines and stuff. Like a lot of shows nowadays, everybody's really quippy and they do little short quips back and forth, and it's like, yeah, funny joke. Hey, funny joke back to you, fellow protagonist.
We've got chemistry.
Yeah, and it's like quippy, and whereas this show, it's like people talk at each other a lot, and not in like a way that makes Overlite bored like Star Trek does, but a way that's like engaging and like it's very meaningful. And like I think there's a lot more really cool stuff coming, but I just sort of thought about that during this. There was like Luthen gives that great speech. I'm sure we'll come up with some more as we go through these two episodes.
I mean, I think honestly, like every single time the ISB has their like high council, every time they have a board meeting, the head guy is giving some speech, or someone else is giving some speech about how the Empire operates and what they do, and etc., etc. And that's like every scene for them.
Yeah, they always have like these some really great interactions with people just trying to like one up each other directly or run up each other behind the scenes.
Oh, it's so like,
and it's like so snarky, and it's so well written. It's so good.
Like that beautiful combination of we are the protectors, security people, the like that sense of like we're keeping the Empire running safely, etc., etc. And then they're also just all trying to fucking one up each other and like get an edge on each other in this incredibly toxic environment. It's like, damn. Okay, then feels a bit contradictory, but sure. Anyway, speaking of Luthen, speaking of Luthen, that's like the third scene. That's like the third. We go from Cyril and his mum to the ISB to Luthen, and Luthen's gotten very pushy. He's started getting more sort of aggravated and like he's trying to rile people up. It feels like he's trying to push harder.
Yeah, we noticed a little bit. I think we mentioned last time. He definitely has some. He keeps it very well contained and keeps this air of like control and sort of when he's pretending to be this antique salesman, he gets this air of like gentry, hilarious. Oh, look at me, yes, that kind of vibe. But then when it underneath is definitely this. There's a lot of anger there. It's like slowly boils out at points during some conversations if he can.
And I do want to point out that there's some fun little framing moments where Mon Mothma and Luthen are talking in the museum as they want to do. And Luthen is very often framed in darkness, and Mon Mothma is framed in light.
Yeah, it probably helps that she's wearing a big white dress.
Yeah, she's wearing a big white dress, and etc. And she's like come in from the outside where all the light is, and he's on the inside where all the dark is. But it's like this interesting parallel of her talking about like how, or like the bad things that this is going to do to people, and Luthen's like, good, people have to suffer in order to actually do something. It's like, okay, I mean, on the one hand, sure, people do have to suffer in order to do things, but also, like, on the other hand, he gives off, since our discussion last time, I look at him with eyes of contempt. You know, there's this feeling of mistrust I have towards Luthen, where I'm like, it just feels like he's doing all of this. Sure, he hates the Empire, but it feels like he just wants to be the one in charge. And when Mon Mothma goes to leave, it's very short shot, but she gets in a car, and we get this shot of the car like ascending out into the motorway or whatever, and the like structure that the museum is located in is shrouded in like complete darkness, and it's like this ring of darkness on the outside of the shot, and then the car is like ascending out, and the light is shining in from above, and it's lit above, and it's literally Mon Mothma flying away in the car, like leaving this place of darkness and going back into like towards the light. I just thought, damn, if that wasn't a nice little aesthetic metaphor, then I don't know what is.
For sure.
And then immediately after that, we get cubicles, and
oh my god, that's what I mean when I'm saying
it's so depressing,
like,
isn't it?
Andor, everybody's life is just so fucking miserable because people are like doing these, like, even no matter where they are throughout the show, you see people and doing like jobs or whatever in different places. And everything just looks so, like, tedious. And, like, the Coruscant is just the most miserable fucking place. Like, Cyril's there. His uncle's got him a job at this. It was the Imperial... Oh, God, I don't remember. Standards Bureau or something. Yeah,
Bureau,
I think that's right. Yeah. The ISB? No.
Oh. It was like the Standards of Importance Bureau. I don't know. I don't think it had Bureau in the name.
I thought it did. Anyway, basically, it's just like some fucking bullshit office job. Yep. And he sat at a booth with like tens of thousands of other people also sat in booths.
It's so, like, they're all completely identical. They're all in grey suits. Everything is grey. All the cubicles are grey. They're surrounded by like screens and like lowly lit anything. It's all completely monotonous and the same. And it gives us, at one point, it zooms out a little bit onto sort of him in his cubicle, and then it zooms out a bit further and he's in like a 3x3 of other cubicles, and then it zooms out a bit further and that 3x3 is in like another like row grid of groups of cubicles, and it's just like this, like, it's so depressing. And there's also a shot where he is doing some work. He's reading something off of a computer. And I really liked it because you can see the reflection of the computer in his eyes and like the numbers going by. And in my head, I was like, "Oh, he's just a little machine." You know, they have sucked every single bit of him that makes him human out of him. They've sucked it all. They've taken it all, and now all that's left in him is the good little robot they want him to be. You know, the happy.
Yeah, I mean, basically, what they're doing could be done by some droids. Like, it is just this fucking monotony. God.
It's there was okay, we'll get to it later. It's episode 2 when Andor ends up in the prison though that I want to talk about. Can I talk about this now?
Get there, yeah.
Talk about it now. I'm talking about it now.
Okay, we're fine. We're going in.
I mean, it's Andor.
Well, we've talked
this
about
episode.
Andor. He goes back to try and get his mum and say, "Hey, you've got to leave with me," and she's like, Actually, can I talk about this first? Can I pivot?
Okay, yeah.
You
Hold it
best.
in.
Okay.
Hold it in.
And Andor, it's partially it's really sad in like a number of different ways. Andor's mum goes, I'm not coming with you. And he's like, well, what reason do you have to stay here on Ferrix? And she's like, I'm part of the rebellion, here on Ferrix. And she says, did you? And he's like, what rebellion? Don't be stupid. And she's like, what did you see? What those heroes did? That on Aldani, those heroes that stood up and fought against the Empire, that stole that money and everything. This is we can make a difference, and it's really sad because he dare not tell her that he was on Aldani.
Yeah.
Because it's just her knowing that is so dangerous.
Yep.
And it's like sad because at the same on one hand he is a hero for doing it and standing up to the Empire. On the other hand, he didn't want to be there. He was paid to be there.
It's kind of
no
interesting
choice.
how glorified they get for sacrificing their lives. So I mean, obviously it is like the amazing thing they did inspired so many people, etc., etc. But it was like all engineered by Luthen in order to spin it as this, like, in order to spin it.
But the money is to fund the rebellion.
Yeah, it's
to fund this bigger idea that we can stand up and fight the Empire and this dream of one day having a galaxy free of their control.
It's somehow just very dehumanizing to have. We got to know them all, and they were a really weird cast of characters. One guy was just there because he fell in love with a local and he decided he didn't like the Empire. And that was
and they all die incredibly unceremonious deaths apart from oh god, I've suddenly forgotten his
communist
name.
Kid.
Yeah, the guy who wrote the manifesto.
Yeah.
Whose name I've suddenly just lost.
Now instead of all those, different individual people, they sort of just been turned into like a status symbol. Burned at the pyre of Luthen's like rebellious drive.
Yeah, well, that's why it's like so. Her saying this is all like it's so weird. It hits so weirdly emotional just seeing someone who knows who the main character is very close to, like look at what's happened and go, these people are heroes and we can stand up and do something, and knowing that it's so much more complicated than that, and that like for the people who are involved in it and everything, and it's just it gets us weird feelings. So anyway, I'm sorry I pivoted into that. Basically Andor's mum, she won't go, so Andor fucks off to like the pleasure planet, finds a woman somehow, probably just because he has a lot of money, does a lot of drugs, goes to the shop to get himself some more drugs and drinks and shit. On his way, some kids are running away from the shore trooper cops. They're like stormtroopers, but they're on the shore, so they're shore troopers. That's why they look different. Yep.
Yeah.
It's canon.
Beach troopers.
No, just shore troopers.
Hey. I understand, Mrs. Star Wars.
Yep. And he's like, because obviously Andor, he's done a lot of naughty things. So he's very shifty and looking around and sort of trying to move quite quickly away from this attention. He's very uncomfortable. And basically some guy sees him, thinks he looks a bit shifty, and basically is like, oh, you're in on it. And Andor's like, oh, I'm not in on what? I'm just going to the shop. And he's like, yeah, you're in on it. Oh, of course somebody who was in on it would say they're going to the shop and all like this. And every time Andor's like, no, I'm a tourist, he's like, oh, yeah, I'm sure. And he's like, oh, are those your friends? Because you see the guys running past and he's like, no, I have no idea who they are. I'm just going to the shop. He's like, yeah, that's what somebody who is their friends and is doing a crime would say. And it's like, well, you can't win because this guy has decided that Andor's guilty. Yep. And that's it. He's just seen him looking shifty, and that's it. He's done.
We're back to our two cops in episode 1 who basically did the same thing, except now that the enforcement powers have been expanded, they can do it to fucking anyone.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
That was basically it. Like, this is the consequences of Andor's actions, and the actions of Luthen and everybody. Is we're seeing it all unfold.
It is funny how it comes back to haunt him.
Yeah,
because he then gets arrested and charged with 6 years for.
Yeah, and the person who charged him, he gets listed off for a bunch of crimes that were completely fucking bullshit, like anti-imperial preaching or something, and he's just walking into the shop. It was like, it wasn't even just like, oh yeah, he was part of a group of people doing a robbery. It was like everything that he was actually charged with was nothing to do with that. And it's like, okay,
doesn't sound at all like a real life situation.
I mean, yeah, and it's just like, okay. And he gets to, and the woman who's charging him is like, well, this would have been a 6-month sentence, but now, after the changes, it's a 6-year prison sentence. And he gets fucking chopped off to prison with, and one little note, I was like, ooh, peepo point. Look, they said, Belsavis is one of the other prisons here. He gets sent to something I can't remember. But one of the other prison transports was Belsavis, which is an Old Republic, from the Star Wars: The Old Republic.
Oh my god, Star Wars!
It's a prison. Whoa. It's a prison planet.
It's my favorite Star Wars blobbo.
Republic.
Prison blobbo.
Prison blobbo. It's my favorite.
It's my favorite. I loved when...
Oh, that prison planet was set up by the Recorder to house their dangerous individuals. The Recorder were also mentioned in one of the previous episodes of Andor, so it's all coming up Star Wars: The Old Republic canon. Thank you.
I loved when at the end of the latest Star Wars ice cream trailer, Belsavis jumped out and said, "It's me, Belsavis!"
Yeah,
and
that's
everyone
my favorite.
cheered.
Everyone cheered. Yeah. That's what I'm like. I'm literally like that.
I can understand. Okay, I'm a fan of other things, and I cheer when I see things. But also, I'm just like, sure, okay.
There was a very subtle cameo in one of the latest Mandalorian episodes of a character from Star Wars Rebels, one of the cast. And
it's such a shame we're never gonna watch more than one episode.
And I did do that. I was like, oh my god, it's character. I don't want to spoil, but I was like, oh, look at that guy.
So he gets sent to prison.
Yeah,
I was secretly really hoping there would be no white people in prison. Like, a part of me was like, God, I really hope this is just a direct call out to the American prison system, which in which if you are not white, it's usually black people, I think, but I'm pretty sure it's any shade of not white. If a cop decides they want to arrest you, they can, and your odds of not being sent to prison are incredibly low unless you have some friends in high places, which obviously most people don't. But like the system over there is literally like, oh, there's a black guy in a hoodie walking down the street, must be up to something suspicious, gets sent to prison where they tell them, oh hey, if you sign this thing, you won't have to deal with an awful trial where all these things are being said about you, and basically gaslight them into signing a thing. And if they don't sign it, they fucking abuse them anyway. And then they get sent to prison where they are forced to work for almost nothing.
Speaking of being sent to a prison and forced to work,
look what happened to Andor.
We've got Andor,
and that's why I was hoping it would be full of just people who weren't white. And it wasn't. But you know, it had the Star Wars diversity ratio is pretty up there nowadays. So, no.
Well, everybody in this prison was human. Much to the people who were like, why aren't we seeing many aliens in Andor? Back on the everybody's a human train.
Maybe they didn't want to pay. Maybe they didn't want to pay their visual.
Yeah,
whoever does the costumes, the aliens.
probably.
It's probably a bit of that.
Bit of easier to do. Just make everybody a human. God, what happened? So in the prison, they drop him off and are like, "Oh, not many people have weapons in this prison because this is why." And he presses a button, and turns out the floor is made from something that makes you have incredible pain unless you're wearing some weird giant slippers. Yeah.
I mean, he did. They gave him a tour of the sort of full security run through. They showed off their torture floors. They walked him into his little segment of the prison where they literally did like a live rundown of how strict they are about timings and we're behind and we have to do this thing and we have to. And him, like, Andor was staring at the boots, and it honestly feel like they had it all out on show for him. I don't know why. Maybe because he was observing it for a prison break. Maybe it was an intimidation tactic. I'm not going to say.
They're just so confident in that, like, the Empire is just so fucking fat and confident with itself, like Andor said previously, that they just don't think that they're going to get out or that there's any way of escaping.
I mean, it is a pretty... the sequence that you have to follow to escape from... It's like they have to break through any number of doors. They have to have the right shoes so they don't get electrocuted and just suffer horribly at the hands of the floor. They have to get past the guards with guns and stun batons. They have to, get out of the prison, which is in the middle of an ocean, by the way. Just, prisons in a lake, prisons in an ocean. Yep. Good luck.
Yep.
Good luck with that. And then they have to get off planet, which, if you're in prison and you have nothing, like literally they get stripped daily, and given like mist showers. It's not an easy task, unless you got like some fucking superpowers up your ass.
Yeah, so they're pretty confident that nobody's gonna escape, so they just leave everything really obvious and open.
Sure, I'm
we
sure.
Did get a little tease of like, there seem to be short-staffed, the guards. Something going on there. But I thought it was like really weird experience because you're like, Andor's got arrested, and the way it's like shot and presented and everything is just like he is just like pushed through, and there's lots of information being thrown at you, but it's really like anxiety inducing, because it's like
they're telling him what's happening, but they're not actually.
But it's just all meaningless because he's just been tossed in this situation. Nobody's actually explaining anything. They're just saying things, and it's just like...
I mean, that is the point,
they're like pushing him around and moving him around really quickly, and like, you're going here, you're going there, you're doing this, you're doing that.
That's
and
the point
like,
of the entire system.
Do that, yeah. It's like, but it is just very like intimidating and scary as like a concept, just being so... and like just thrown into this completely weird situation.
I'm sure that doesn't happen anywhere in the real world anyway, so...
No.
Sure is nothing that's happened to people in the past either.
Well, and then he gets into his actual... After the guards have they chuck him out into this room where there's no guards.
Yeah.
There's just 7 tables of 7 prisoners and one dude in the middle.
He was also a prisoner.
He was also a prisoner,
this is where it gets
he's
even
in
more
charge
depressing.
of the prisoners. And did you recognize that one dude, Overlite? One dude?
Yes, it was my favorite actor from the classic hit Star Wars show.
Nope.
Blorkatron.
Okay.
I love
it's
John Blorkatron.
It's Andy Serkis.
It's Andy Serkis. It's Andy Serkis.
He plays Gollum in Lord of the Rings, and like all of the fucking he's the CGI guy who does like every fucking CGI character.
Oh, is he the CGI guy?
Yeah, he's the CG. That's Andy Serkis. He actually plays Snoke in Star Wars. He's one of the few actors to actually have more than one role in a Star Wars thing. Because obviously, Snoke is just the CG character, so they got away with being able to toss him.
Hang on.
In as a separate...
He's not the guy who always ends up who always does like the what's the word for it? Like live when they make an outfit and put it on a person. He's not that one. That's a different guy.
No, that's Doug Jones.
Doug Jones, yeah. Doug Jones is the one I get excited about.
No, he does all of the like Doug Jones does all of the sort of costume,
like dressing
characters.
Up as an alien.
Yeah, like with the really crazy makeup and yeah. Whereas Andy Serkis is the guy who is like he owns his own motion capture studio. He's like pushed motion capture super far. He's the mocap guy. He's a very, very, very famous actor who has done a lot of acting separate to motion capture.
Good for him.
Yeah. So
oh my gosh, it's Andy Serkis.
It's Andy Serkis.
Wow.
But it's cool to see him. I think he does a really great job in this.
I mean, he certainly gets across because he has the exact same tone that everyone else has had, pushing Andor into this situation where suddenly he's just being forced to do things.
Yeah.
And he's not had a chance to stop any of it. It's just as soon as you're in the system, there's no escaping it. Can't think of anywhere in the real world where this happens. And it's extra depressing because you realize, like, oh, they've invented a system in order to get the prisoners to organize themselves and like comply by giving them better tasting food if they're top of the
so
groups.
Basically they're in this prison and there's 7 tables of 7 people and there's 7 groups of these
on their layer of the factory prison
level, like
and the 7 levels of factory
and there's 7 levels of etc. And they're in there, and everybody who's in there, they have to work for 12 hours straight. Then they get to 12 hours like to chill out. Then they got to get back on for 12 hours, over and over again for the rest of their time that they're in this prison.
Until they serve their time.
Until they serve their time,
or
and they
die.
have a clock of their time in their bunk.
Yep.
And they're having to build something, which could just be it's just this cross. So it could be absolutely fucking, but it doesn't matter what it is.
No, it doesn't matter what it is.
It could be like a part of an AT-AT or something, or like a fucking part of a Star Destroyer, but it don't fucking matter. The point is, they're just having to build this thing for the rest of their time, this one single thing over and over and over again. And they're having to and the way that they've set up the system is these 7 tables have to compete against each other in their room.
Yeah.
To see who makes the most of these random cross things.
The ones who don't get punished. The ones who make the most.
The ones who make the least get zapped by the zappy floor, and the ones who make the most get some tasty food.
Yay!
That's it.
And then their unit gets measured against the other units on the floor.
Yes,
and I'm sure their floor gets measured against the other floors, and I'm sure the prison gets measured against the other prisons.
Yeah, because there was 3 prisons. I think you see when you went.
I thought there was. I just assumed there were 7.
Oh, I think we see 3. I think on one of the shots. Yeah. And it's like just this competition all the way down of just to keep everybody motivated.
This is the bit.
But a part of me is like, I guess that at least sort of gives it a bit of. To me, I'm thinking, if you're having to do this monotony for the rest of your thing, having it be a competition does at least make it feel slightly less monotonous. But then the other part of me is like, that is to keep them compliant by making it a competition, to keep them from organizing or anything, by keeping them fighting against each other. So it's like there's two two things where I'm like, it'd be good because it wouldn't be as awful, but it is awful as well.
So this is the part that this is why I brought up the prisons like 15 minutes ago when we were talking about the corporate cubicles. I'm not actually sure if we were talking about that, but that's what I was bringing it up in regards to, because we got a good highlight this episode. This is in episode 8, actually, this prison stuff. We have literally, I think, at the end of episode 7 and the start of episode 8, we get Cyril in his corporate cubicle, in his cubicle surrounded by cubicles in their little grid filled with, like, you know, just the layers and layers of monotony of everyone doing the same thing, being good little robot worker drones. And then it cuts to Andor, who's in prison, who's kind of doing the same thing, just manual labor instead of staring at a computer, forced to work in this extremely monotonous situation. You know, the aesthetics of both are like clean gray or clean white with a little bit of orange on their uniforms, and, you know, forced to keep to a schedule and forced to compete in this way, trying to get, like, it's interesting how the ones who comply with the system are always trying to get an edge on each other, and the ones who don't are put in a situation where they're forced to try and get an edge on each other. And, like, there's this absolute obsession with, like, efficiency and running things smoothly and running things tightly and running, like, as fast as possible and getting people to work effectively and be as good little workers as possible. And I mean, with the regular people, they do this by just, like, having this all these reviews and all the, you know, people who like to comply. I think you don't have to motivate them as hard.
Well, even the ISB, go back to the ISB, their whole thing is them, like, they're trying to do their job protecting the Empire, etc., etc., but they're all competing with each other, and they're all like trying to one-up each other, trying to, like, get the most control of the most sectors, etc., etc. Like, there's always something that they're, like, fighting each other over. And you can see that, like, Dedra's kind of rival in the ISB one, we find out that he left a load of stuff out of his report about the Ferrex incident, presumably because he was trying to, like, you know, keep the details back just to make him not look as bad or something.
Yeah.
Like, he's trying to like one up the situation, and Dedra's, you know, channeling her inner Cyril. She's trying to do what she sees as the right thing, regardless of the one up each other thing, which is exactly what Cyril got into his predicament with, because he was like, even though this is what I'm being told is, like, the best way to keep everybody, like, safe and secure in their job, it's not the right thing to do, and I want to do the right thing, and he pushed for it. So
it's horrifying.
Yeah, everybody who breaks that mold ends up in that mold.
We get a great parallel of what happens if you comply, which is Cyril, and I guess the ISB as well, and what happens if you don't comply, which is, like, Andor being in, like, that's the end goal of, if the Empire gets their way, that's everyone's life, is in a fucking prison working labor. And the other side is, oh, at least you don't have to work in the prisons, at least you're working protecting the integrity of the Empire. And it's like, well, everyone's doing the same fucking thing anyway, and it's really depressing.
Yeah.
It's like horrible, monotonous, lifeless work that makes you ask, like, damn, what is even the point?
That's why it's like, that's why I was saying earlier on that it just makes the whole universe just feels so depressing. Everybody's stuck in this fucking monotonous.
I don't think of any comparisons this could be having to the real world.
Eek. Meanwhile, we have some good contrast though, because we have all Mon Mothma has a little, like, arc going on.
Yeah.
This whole time.
Also, can I just say that she, like, absolutely slays in every scene she's in. She's, like, the hottest motherfucker in the room.
Yeah.
God. I didn't realize it when she was talking to Luthen, but then we get a scene of her and, like, she's at a party, and I'm like, God, her outfit is so good. She looks amazing. She always looks amazing. I just want to say that I'm here for it.
I'm gay.
I'm gay. Oh, jeez. Wait, we have to pause.
Okay.
When Cassian talks to Marva, his mum, way back earlier in episode 7, right at the start of that we talked at the beginning of the podcast, we get a really nice shot when she's talking about being a rebel and what they did on Aldhani. Cassian is trying to persuade her not to, saying it's not worth it, etc. Marva is standing on one half of the room. For a brief moment, they do this shot where she's standing on one half of the room and she's like surrounded by like greenery and plants and like life. And Andor is on the other side of the room where it's all like metal stuff and like the coldness of the wall. And I just thought, damn, the rebellion being very sort of full of life and variety and plants and nature and just like things that make you feel good as a person who is alive versus, you know, all the other stuff, the Empire being like the cold hardness. And I've said this before, I'm just saying it again for this one shot, and they just continue doing it. It's like persistent and continuous how they just keep every time we've got some rebellious stuff, they're always surrounded by, like, whenever they're doing the sort of strongest level of rebellious activity, it's always surrounded by, like, life and plants and all sorts of things. And then the Imperial side is cold and hard and brutal and awful.
For sure. Also, it reminded me of the bit with when Cassian's trying to convince Marva. They have a sort of flashback to what happened to the guy who was there, who was like Marva's. I don't know if they were romantically involved, but they were both working together to steal something from the ship, and then they like took Andor away because he was on that ship or whatever, like really early on. So he's like Andor's father figure essentially.
Yep.
And we find out that he was killed, not by the Empire. I don't know what the timeline is like because he was kind of a teenager.
It was an Imperial officer.
Was it an Imperial
officer? It was a guy in black.
I thought. Yeah, I thought it was but the people who were in the suits, they look like clones. It looked like Gen 1 clone.
I couldn't say.
I'm gonna go and quickly.
They did seem like stormtroopers.
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense for them to have been stormtroopers, but it also looked like they were clones. But so then I was thinking, at the same time, it doesn't really matter either way. The institution, the galactic power, killed his
Dad,
father figure,
who it turns out was called Clem, and that
was called Clem, and that was the
the
name that he gave when he was doing his rebellious activity on Aldhani.
Very spicy.
So it was all very sad all around. Then like couple that with
it's a really depressing
Marva.
2 episodes. It's just like pain.
Yeah.
Just
Couple that with Marva
happen.
saying like, "Oh, those people are heroes" and everything, and she walked down. She could never walk down that street where Clem was killed because it reminded her of that. But after the Aldhani thing, she walked down that street with her head held high, smiling. And it's like, oh my god, it's very emotional.
She's got some life in her yet.
Yeah. I'm looking at this scene now to see what the officers are.
There's one alien I'm pretty sure on this entire, like, 2 episodes, and it's a guy on a beach. It's like 2 seconds of an alien on a beach who laughs. He's just like, heh, 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 heh. I really liked that. I really liked that alien.
I do not remember that. Okay, somebody's shouting "Long live the Republic," and it clearly looks like sort of.
Well, it's got to be Imperial then.
And then they're saying "Free Ferrex," somebody else's.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're Wait, can I get a better shot? I think they are stormtroopers. I don't know. I can't tell. Because of the shot. It's annoying.
Too important.
But it doesn't matter. It's the same. It's the same difference.
So Mon Mothma.
Yeah. Mon Mothma.
We've got this whole like storyline where she is trying to do something
Well,
It just
basically, she has given, like, she has obviously been giving Luthen money to fund the rebellion, and Luthen's like, we need more money, and she wants to bring in somebody to help her sort her money. She says to this, she's brought in an old friend of hers from school, and she says to him in a beautiful, they have this beautiful back and forth where neither of them say that they're like anti-imperial, but they basically dance around it like, oh, I don't think you'll enjoy me talking about politics. I think you'll find my stance too strong or something like that. And then she echoes it back to him later on when she's like got him more alone, and she's trying to talk about her plan to move money around, and he's like, what do you want it for? And she's like, oh, I couldn't tell you that, it's safer for both of us, but I think you'll find my opinion on politics quite strong these days, or something like that. So there's like they both know that they hate the Empire, and it's all about working towards that, which I kind of liked.
It was a very good subtle conversation.
Yeah, it was beautiful. That's what I mean with like that. The conversations and stuff in this show are just so well done, and like,
I feel like Mon Mothma, as much as like these episodes, she's progressing towards this, like, she's moving money around, she's involved in political affairs, I still kind of feel like we haven't seen, like, she's still moving money around. Okay, I don't really think it's changed that much.
No,
it
kind of progresses a little bit. It's just basically, this one is her like introducing this guy who she knows, and sort of,
if we get to the end of the show,
we're getting a lot more like lore about her, about Chandrilla, about the Empire.
Yeah, they do keep bringing
like a lot
Chandrilla.
of world building and stuff, and like Chandrillan customs. Like, she married her husband, who her husband and hers don't seem to get along very well. He's like a sort of, she's trying to do all of this rebel stuff without him knowing, and like putting on this senator face.
He used to be the young
likes to party,
firebrand.
and yeah, he likes to party, and you know, he's a bit of an asshole.
Yeah.
And her daughter is like sides with him, and so she's a bit of an asshole. And we find out that the reason that they're quite antagonistic and not like super loving towards each other is because they were presumably, you imply, forced to marry at 15.
Yes.
She became a senator at 16.
Yes.
And so they've spent their entire life together on Coruscant.
Kind of insane.
Not really loving each other, but like having to sort of live in this insane. And I think the whole Coruscant vibe, the whole thing of Mon Mothma's thing, it isn't that she has like she doesn't have a very fast plot line in this gathering money, gathering an ally kind of thing, but it serves as a great contrast to everybody is so depressed and like living in squalor and having these monotonous jobs, and you look back to Mon Mothma, and she's here living in the, because she's a senator, and so whether she thinks she should deserve to or wants to live there or not, she's living in this lap of luxury because she has to put on this face that she is like this rich pompous asshole, because that's what everybody else is, and so she has to like play along, living in this giant mansion at the top of Coruscant, and like having these giant parties and wearing these beautifully opulent clothes and everything, and it's such it serves as such a good contrast for how shit everyone else's life is.
If we get to the end of at the end of Andor, and Mon Mothma's storyline hasn't gotten anywhere, I am going to complain.
Well, stuff does happen, but I think more stuff will happen in season 2, because part of Mon Mothma's storyline,
I'm cringing.
Because you have to bear in mind,
service.
Mon Mothma.
This character's fan service, and I don't like it.
Well, it's not fan service. Well, I guess it.
Watching her, I swear to God, if we get to the end of the season and it's, I can't move my money around anymore, oh, and it's like, okay, why are you in the? I mean, I understand like she's helped us enlighten to some things, and it is pretty great, but like she's got this whole narrative that they've spent so much time with Mon Mothma.
No, but it's not just about her plot. It's about showing the people in charge. Like,
yes, but I'm going to complain
and showing
because I think it's fan
the consequences and showing. And Mon Mothma is such a hugely important part of the rebellion, and seeing like her struggles.
Everyone
and her family
talks
life
about how the Andor show
everything.
doesn't really matter that it's in the Star Wars universe, and now I have to deal with Mon Mothma plot lines, and I do like that she's really hot, but they spend too much time.
We'll get there. It's fine. We've got 4 more episodes. We'll get there. But I think a big thing of hers is going to happen in season 2. I think they're going to do the thing that happens with her in Rebels. I think they'll do it in season 2 of Andor. So she'll definitely have a big bit in season 2 of Andor. But she does have a plot line in season 1.
It's gonna be great. The Rebels thing.
Shaking my ass.
I'll wait for the Rebels thing. It's gonna be
shaking my ass.
I'm just so I'm so cold. It's something about Disney owning Star Wars, and then also they're the ones who do the MCU, right? I'm not getting my wires crossed here.
Yeah.
And then also owning the MCU, where every single thing that happens is some version of dick sucking some other thing that happened in some other film that you're supposed to have watched to understand the random scene that we had in particular in this, or why they're spending so much time. And I'm like, I think it's cringe. I think like it. This show made a huge effort to separate itself from the rest of Star Wars, and it's cringe.
It did, but it's also It's also about a guy who sacrifices himself to give the Death Star plans to the rebellion. As he's a rebel who sacrifices himself to get the Death Star plans to Leia, who gets them to Mon Mothma. So, like, at the end of the day, it's still about a guy. What happens? The story of how a guy goes from being self-serving to fully a rebel.
It's too much Mon Mothma.
I like it. I think it's a great, like, sort of parallel and also contrast at the same time to everything that Andor and the other people are going through.
Yeah, but it's too much.
Seeing this, like, opulent, crazy bullshit that she has to put up with.
I've decided
they were
it's too much.
Discussing the
bill.
Change
my mind until I watch more episodes.
The bill about so we're like seeing the effects of the Aldani raid.
I tell you what would be great at some point. As much as I don't want the fan service, I do want a shot of the Senate, like from.
Well, we get
one earlier on, but I want one.
We have one last.
I want a shot that changes the perspective on the Senate the same way they've changed the perspective on the TIE fighters to make them terrifying. Yeah. And this episode as well, I think episode 7, there's a shot of a Death Star, and I have never been more scared.
Destroyer, yeah.
The Star Destroyer, not the Death Star.
Sintra, who's like one of the two women who survived the Aldani thing. They're the couple.
Yeah.
Vel and Cinta, and Cinta stayed behind in like an Imperial outfit.
When the gays are the only ones to live.
Yeah, the gays are the only ones to live. And so we see her walking away at the end of like the heist, as she's obviously got some like cleanup to do or something. So she's still hanging around now. At the start, and we see her like getting a speeder bike out, and you just look up and you see like this shadow coming over her, and she looks up and there's just this Star Destroyer.
It's huge and it's terrifying,
massive, covering the entire sky above. And, just like
I was looking at it and I was like, how the fuck are you supposed to do anything about that thing?
What a beautiful shot.
It's terrifying because she's just there on the ground. Just walking around in a forest, and there's this like enormous fucking flying triangle in the sky. You can't even conceive how huge it is in your head. It's just like, what the fuck? How do you deal with that? That's ridiculous. And it's great because they've never been so scary. And I want them to do that with the Senate. And,
yeah,
you know,
I can't remember if they
left.
do. But I agree.
If they do, I might not complain about Mon Mothma.
I can't remember.
Well,
it's
don't
going to be
tell
good
me.
for me.
We're going to find out.
I know, but I'm trying to remember myself, and I can't remember.
Okay. All right. What else have we got to chat about?
I think the main thing is Vel and Cinta. Or basically Vel. We get a little bit of story about her. She was leading the raid on Aldani. She meets up with Luthen's assistant friend.
Yep.
Co-conspirator.
Who's super hot, by the way. She looks amazing. She has this red outfit, and I was like, damn, who's this hottie?
Yes, because she's disguised as well, because she has like a hair down and everything. So they meet up, and she's basically like... We kind of talked about this earlier, where we got to know all of the people, and they're kind of now just like nameless. Luthen like doesn't care about them really. He's just sort of using them to further his agenda of creating a rebellion. And his assistant's kind of like, she kind of echoes that a little bit, because she's like, Vel's obviously feeling kind of bad about how it all went down. She's like, it's okay to feel bad. I knew them too. I recruited them personally. But while she's saying that, she just has no emotion in her voice at all.
Yeah.
She's just like, she's saying the words, but she clearly doesn't really mean them.
I mean, we get to see sort of how some of that ruthlessness and, like, I guess, anger of Luthen is coming out and kind of turning on the people who helped him in the way that Andor has suddenly become this, like, thorn in his side, where he knows Andor is out there with way too much information on Luthen.
Yeah.
And he wants him gone.
Yeah.
And it's suddenly like, oh, this great rebellion, don't you want to get something back? Dude, it's like so obvious how much he was just using him. Because now he just wants him eliminated for knowing too much.
I think if Andor had come, like, if they'd finished that mission and Andor had stuck with Val and they'd come along and trusted each other and brought the money to wherever it needed to go, and, like, Andor had allowed himself to be brought into the fold, like Luthen's fold, I think Luthen would have been like, I think he would have maybe relied on him a bit more and trusted him a bit more and like brought him in. Not like fully, because he's still just a random guy he's just got. But like I think he knew Andor was clean, knew he had some rebellious anti-imperial, anti-republic tendencies. Like he knew that he would do something like that he could do it. He could be a rebel. He took the chance. Believing that Andor would be a rebel. And Andor just decided to fuck off and get high and shag some random woman. And
on
then
a beach.
End up in prison
and get arrested
on a beach. And everybody's looking for him because his mum's now unwell.
It is hilarious. Literally everyone is looking for Andor.
Yeah, she's been doing some rebel stuff and now she's kind of sick. And so Bix is looking for him because she wants to say, hey, your mum's not well. And
Cyril and Dedra are looking for him.
Cyril wants to find him, but Cyril can't do anything because he's just stuck in his office, so he's filing a load of false reports. And Dedra gets wind of these false reports and is like, bitch, why are you filing all these false reports?
They meet. Oh, it's so sexy. The tension. You could...
Yeah.
I am joking. It's like it's so cold and depressing watching them talk.
Yeah, she's just like, she thinks he's nothing, clearly.
But
because
they're the
she
same.
just cares about the thing, and he thinks that they're the same, and that he thinks he's justified in his pursuit, and that if he believes hard enough that they'll take the chance on him and let him try and track Andor down. But she's just like, I don't give a shit who you are. Stop doing this.
Meanwhile, I'm watching this and I'm charting like, radicalization. Did somebody ask for like? I'm just like turn.
Yeah.
I'm so convinced he's gonna switch sides. Like he's getting thoroughly rejected by every part of the institution that he believes in. I just I so badly want it to happen.
God, what else happens?
Well, I think that was the only thing I was really.
Yeah, Vel and Cinta, they go to try and track down Andor and eliminate him because he knows too much about Luthen. And they have a little tiff because Cinta is so committed to the cause that she is willing to sacrifice her relationship with Val, and basically is like, Val obviously has some doubts and stuff, and
I think it's
and Cinta's
maybe
like,
maybe I'm just
I'm
gay,
your mirror.
But it seems pretty cringe. Like
well, I think it's just that like they both love each other, but Vel's willing to leave it all behind to be with Cinta, and Cinta's willing to throw Vel away or like sacrifice their relationship and herself in the pursuit of the rebellion. So like she's a true believer in that sense. So they have a very interesting conversation.
It's very depressing because the whole reason it happens is because only one of them can stay on Ferrix, and they need like it'll be too suspicious if they show up and stay together. And
I'm excited for next episode for that Vel backstory. That's what I'm excited for.
Is that what we're getting next episode?
Yeah, maybe a little bit more Vel.
I can't believe you'd spoil me like this.
Yeah.
I thought we were gonna get a prison break. Well, it's been a good episode.
I think the only thing we haven't mentioned is that when Bix was trying to contact Luthen to find out where Andor was, Dedra has like set up a load of shit on the planet, it doesn't get explained that this is what happened. You just have to infer it from the conversation previously in the episode. But she's basically set up a bunch of spy stuff, found out that somebody has been communicating with and they track it to the place that she was communicating from, which is owned by a guy and his son, and they arrest the guy and they torture the shit out of him. And then Dedra's like, they arrest Bix afterward, and Dedra's like, leave the guy in here, Peck or something I think it's called, right? And leave him in here, I want her to see him. And then she gets brought in, and Dedra's like, oh no, get him out of here, don't leave him in it, get him out, like that, like pretending that she didn't just order them to make her see, like, yeah, it was pretty fucking
classic
cheeky.
Gaslighting maneuver.
Yeah.
Love those cops.
Yeah.
I've realized that I'm just like, I'm kind of apathetic to all the small things that happened, because just the constant overarching grind of pain was there. Like, it's all just painful. Like, it's all like Mon Mothma has to deal with awful shit to get anything done, and her horrible home life, and Luthen is like slowly descending into being a raging like monster who's willing to sacrifice whatever it takes, including the people who help him get there in the first place. And Andor is in prison, serving time, arguably for a crime he committed, but he's only there because he just randomly got picked up off the street by some random guard, and now he has to serve 6 years in prison. Cyril is working as a corporate drone, is getting rejected at every step in any way that he tries to do, and also has to live with his mum, who is a raging asshole.
Yeah.
Dedra's just sad.
Well, she's definitely got her finger on the pulse of the rebels, though. She knows what's up. She's cracked the code. She's figuring it all out.
I think maybe that's why. Honestly, the ISB scenes were some of the most exciting somehow, and I assume it is just because Dedra's the only one who isn't really sad and is actually getting anywhere with what.
Yeah, because Andor's not doing anything right now. He's like, he went on holiday and then got arrested and thrown in prison. So he's not like, he doesn't have a goal, except right now, I guess, is survive or escape prison. Luthen's goal is just vaguely more rebel stuff. And whereas Dedra is the one who is like, she is working towards something, she's piecing the puzzles together. Like, she's got a lot happening, I think.
It's just all of it, like, regardless of all the small things that happen, all the different things, all the interactions, and I'm sure there's a bunch more that we missed. It's all, like, painful. It's just watching people be in pain and have shitty lives under the thumb of the boot of the Empire.
I was worried because we decided to do these in 2 episodes. Because I think
this is the depression episode.
The next 2 group together really well. So it made sense to split these ones up into 2s instead of having them in 3s like we had been doing. And I think it was a good idea. Because I think these were the 2... They didn't like do massive plot progression necessarily.
It would be a completely different tone from what's about to happen, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was like...
They didn't have the same... They didn't have the same build, though, that the other pairs of episodes. You know, episodes 1 and 2, episodes 4 and 5. It's like we knew it was going somewhere. At best, I'm like, okay, well, there's probably going to be maybe a prison break. But like,
I think there is a build. It's just there's 3 episodes of build, 1 episode of payoff, rather than 2 episodes of build, 1 episode of payoff.
We got another build episode next week.
Kind of in some things that are happening. Yeah. There's a build.
Is this a joke?
No.
This fucking Andor show. What the hell is this
shit? So good though.
I mean, like, yeah, but also like, I just watched 2 hours of people being sad.
Oh, it's worth it. It's worth it. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll be back with some more Andor next week. Bye. that was my outro. Thank you for listening to the View Screen podcast. See ya.